The thing about humans, and trust me on this, is that they don't make a lick of sense until it's too late to do anything about it. I learned this the hard way on Platform 63, which was supposed to be a routine cargo station orbiting the fourth moon of Helix Prime. Routine, that's what the briefing said. That's what my supervisor, a three-eyed Vorgathian named Kelp, told me when he assigned me to security detail. Just watch the docking procedures, Marlowe. Make sure nobody steals anything. Easy credits. Easy credits. Right. I should have known something was off when the human freighter requested emergency docking clearance. Humans always requested emergency clearance. It was like their species had a pathological aversion to planning ahead. But regulations are regulations, and Platform 63 accepted all distress calls within range. So we opened Bay 7 and waited. The freighter that limped in looked like it had been through a recycling compactor. Twice. Hull plates hung at odd angles, carbon scoring covered every surface, and one of the engines was just gone. Not damaged. Gone. Like someone had reached down and plucked it right off. By the 12 moons, I muttered, watching the wreck somehow manage a semi-controlled landing that would have failed any flight school in the quadrant. How is that thing even pressurized? My partner, a Litharian named Quent, who had been doing station security for 15 cycles, just shook his head. His scales made a soft rattling sound when he did that. Humans. They could keep a hull breach sealed with optimism and spite if you gave them half a chance. The cargo bay doors hissed open, and the crew stumbled out. 5 of them. All human. All looking like they hadn't slept in a week. The captain, a woman with short dark hair and a scar running down her left cheek, immediately started arguing with the docking coordinator about fees. Look, we'll pay the emergency docking tax, but we're not paying the environmental surcharge. Our ship's Atmo is fine. The coordinator, a very by-the-book Centaurian named Drix, held up his datapad. Your ship is venting oxygen from 3 separate breaches. That's a contamination risk. The surcharge stands. Those aren't breaches. Those are speed holes. They make us go faster. I couldn't tell if she was joking. With humans, you never could tell. Quent moved forward, his massive frame making even the tall captain look small. Captain, he checked his own datapad. Reeves. Captain Maya Reeves. And before you ask, yes, we have our documentation. Yes, our cargo is legitimate. No, we don't have any prohibited biologicals on board. And no, I don't want to answer any more questions until I've had something that resembles actual food. She had this way of talking that made it sound like she was doing you a favor by breathing the same air. Most species would have found it offensive. I found it kind of refreshing, actually. At least she was honest about being difficult. We just need to verify your manifest, I said, keeping my voice level. Standard procedure for all emergency dockings. One of her crew members, a younger guy with bright red hair that defied at least 3 laws of nature, snorted. Standard procedure, right. Because we definitely chose to get our butts kicked by pirates as part of our master plan. Pirates. That explained the condition of the ship, and probably why Captain Reeves had that particular edge to her voice. Getting jumped by raiders was bad for business, and worse for your lifespan. Pirates? Quent's scales did that rattling thing again. Did you report them to the Galactic Patrol? Captain Reeves gave him a look that could have melted hull plating. Oh, sure, let me just use our completely functional long-range comms that definitely weren't shot to pieces. Great idea. Why didn't I think of that? The sarcasm was thick enough to cut with a plasma torch. I pulled up the manifest on my pad while Quent tried to get more information about the pirates. Mostly standard cargo. Medical supplies, consumer electronics, about 200 kilos of processed nutrients. Nothing that would raise red flags. But something felt wrong. That nagging sensation you get when the numbers add up, but the story doesn't. Captain, Your cargo hold shows different mass readings than your manifest declares." She didn't even blink. "Yeah, that's because we jettisoned about 30% of our cargo when the pirates started boarding. Turns out that consumer electronics make really expensive decoys when you're trying not to die. You jettisoned 30%. Give or take. Math gets fuzzy when people are shooting at you." This was going to be a paperwork nightmare. I could already see the forms multiplying in my mind's eye. Quent was looking at me with that expression that said, "Your problem now, Junior." Before I could respond, the station's alert system blared to life. Red lights started spinning, and the announcement system crackled with the docking coordinator's panicked voice. "Multiple unidentified vessels approaching platform. All personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Captain Reeves's expression shifted from annoyed to something much colder. "You've got to be kidding me. They followed us?" The younger crew member with the impossible red hair grabbed her arm. "Captain, we need to—" "I know, Tommy. Get back to the ship. Try to get the weapons online." "The weapons are offline because the weapons system doesn't exist anymore." "Then get creative!" Around us, the platform erupted into chaos. Personnel running in every direction. Alarm klaxons screaming. Through the bay windows, I could see 3 ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They had the distinctive markings of the Rakthian cartel. Not just pirates. Organized pirates. The kind that didn't leave witnesses. Quent was already moving toward the security station, his training overriding his panic. I should have been right behind him. Instead, I was watching Captain Reeves, because something about the way she was moving didn't match her beat-up freighter or her exhausted crew. She was calm, not pretending to be calm. Actually calm. "Quent," I called out, "we need to seal this bay and evacuate the civilians." "Already on it," his voice came back through the comms. "But the bay doors are responding slow. Something's wrong with the hydraulics." Of course something was wrong with the hydraulics. This was Platform 63. Nothing worked right the first time. The Rakthian ships were getting closer. I could make out their hull configurations now. 2 light cruisers and a boarding craft. They weren't here to negotiate. The platform's automated defense turrets swiveled and fired, but the cruisers had shields that absorbed the plasma fire like it was nothing. Captain Reeves turned to her crew. "All right, new plan. Tommy, Lucia, get to engineering. See if you can help them get those bay doors closed. Hank, Marcus, you're with me." "What are you doing?" I asked, because someone needed to be the voice of reason in this insanity. She looked at me with those sharp eyes. "What does it look like?" "Defending the platform." "You're a cargo hauler with a barely functional ship." "I'm a cargo hauler who really hates pirates. There's a difference." Before I could stop her, she was moving. Her crew followed without question, which should have been my first clue that this wasn't a normal cargo operation. Normal cargo crews argued. They questioned orders. They definitely didn't run toward danger with that particular kind of focus. I should have stayed at my post. I should have helped Quent with the evacuation protocols. Instead, I followed Captain Reeves, because my instincts were screaming that something very important was about to happen, and I needed to see it. She led her crew, and apparently me, through the corridors toward the platform's observation deck. It was the highest point on the station, with a clear view of all approach vectors. It was also completely indefensible and far away from any emergency shelters. "Captain, this is insane," I called after her. "We need to get to the safe zones." "Safe zones won't matter if they board the platform," she shot back without slowing down. "They'll crack it open like a nut and take everything, including everyone." She wasn't wrong. Rakthian raiders were notorious for their brutality. They didn't just steal cargo. They took prisoners, sold them to labor colonies, and sometimes just spaced people for entertainment. We reached the observation deck just as the first boarding craft attached to the platform's outer hull. Through the reinforced windows, I could see figures moving inside the craft. A lot of figures. "How many do you think?" asked Hank, a stocky human with arms that looked like he could bend steel beams for fun. Captain Reeves studied the craft. 30, maybe 40. Depends on how many they're willing to pack. In like sardines. Sardines? I asked. Never mind, Earth thing. Marcus, the quiet one who hadn't said a word since they'd docked, spoke up. His voice was surprisingly deep. "They'll breach through Section C, weakest hull plating." "How do you know that?" I demanded. Captain Reeves smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Because that's where we'd breach if we were them." That's when several things clicked into place in my mind. The way they moved, the way they communicated, the absolute lack of panic despite being in mortal danger. Again, "You're not cargo haulers." "We haul cargo," Captain Reeves said, still watching the boarding craft. "We're just really bad at it." "What are you really?" "Formerly military. Various branches. Various reasons for leaving. Currently independent contractors who occasionally transport goods from point A to point B." "Mercenaries. Such an ugly word. I prefer aggressively entrepreneurial." The platform shuddered as the raiders began cutting through the hull. We didn't have much time. Station security would be spread thin, trying to protect multiple breach points. The civilians were being evacuated to the core, but that was just delaying the inevitable. "There's 5 of you," I said. "Maybe 40 of them. The math doesn't work." Tommy's voice crackled through Captain Reeves's comm. "Captain, we've got the bay doors sealed. Lucia's helping the engineering team rig some surprises for our unwelcome guests." "Good work. Stay there and coordinate with station security. Make them work for every meter." "Understood. Try not to die before we get back." "No promises." She turned to Hank and Marcus. "You two know the drill. Hank, you take the left corridor when they breach. Marcus, you've got right. I'll take center." "What about me?" I asked, surprising myself. I was station security, not a combat specialist. My job was checking manifests and breaking up drunk arguments in the station bar. Captain Reeves looked me over. Really looked at me, like she was assessing my worth in a split second. "You ever kill anyone?" "No." "You want to start today?" "Not particularly." "Good. You're on civilian protection. If any of them get past us, you make sure they don't reach the core. Use that security baton you've got on your belt. Aim for the joints in their armor. Rakthians have weak knee articulation." "How do you know?" The hull exploded inward. Not breached. Exploded. The raiders didn't bother with careful cutting. They'd packed the breach point with enough explosives to turn the reinforced plating into shrapnel. The observation deck's emergency shields slammed down, protecting us from the vacuum, but the noise was deafening. Through the smoke and debris, shapes moved. Big shapes. Rakthians were naturally large, averaging about 2.5 meters tall, and they wore powered armor that made them look even more massive. Their leader pushed through first, a brute with decorative spikes on his armor and a plasma rifle that could have taken down a light vehicle. He saw us immediately. Saw the 3 humans standing there like they were waiting for a shuttle. Saw me, pressed against the wall, trying very hard not to look like a target. The raider laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through his helmet speakers. "Humans! The mighty Galactic Patrol sends humans to defend this station? They must be desperate." Captain Reeves tilted her head. "We're not with the patrol." "Then you're about to be very dead. Move aside, and maybe we'll let you live." No, I don't think so." The raider leader's laugh cut off. "What?" "I said no. You see, I've had a really bad week. My ship is trashed. I'm behind on 3 cargo contracts, and I haven't had actual coffee in 6 days. 6 days. Do you have any idea what that does to a person?" I will give you one more chance. And then there's you, following us here, putting all these innocent people at risk, ruining my perfectly good emergency docking. That's just rude. The raider raised his rifle. Captain Reeves moved. I've seen a lot of species fight. Vorgathians are strong. Litharians are fast. Centaurians have that weird 360-degree vision that makes them murder in close quarters. But I'd never seen anything move like a human with nothing left to lose. She crossed the distance between them in less than a heartbeat. The raider fired, but she was already inside his reach, past the barrel of his rifle. Her hand grabbed his weapon arm. The other hand struck his helmet with enough force that I heard the impact from across the room. The raider staggered. Then he did what any self-respecting warrior would do when facing an inferior opponent. He shoved her aside with his free hand, using his superior size and strength to literally push her away. She flew backward, hit the deck, rolled. And that's when it happened. That's when Maya Reeves, cargo hauler, mercenary, human, did something that made absolutely no sense according to every physical law I understood. She came up from her roll in one fluid motion. The raider was advancing, confident, probably thinking he'd taught the little human a lesson. He was wrong. Captain Reeves planted her feet, set her stance. And as this massive armored warrior reached for her with one clawed hand, she grabbed his wrist, pivoted, and threw him. Not pushed him, not shoved him. Threw him. A 2.5-meter-tall Rakthian in full-powered armor went flying through the air like he weighed nothing. He crashed into two of his companions who were coming through the breach behind him. All three of them went down in a tangle of limbs and damaged pride. The observation deck went silent. Even the other raiders stopped moving, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Captain Reeves dusted off her hands. Anyone else want to try the easy way? The silence lasted exactly 2 seconds before all hell broke loose. The remaining raiders opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the observation deck like a festival of death. Hank dove left, Marcus rolled right, and Captain Reeves did something that looked like a cross between a cartwheel and a tactical maneuver that definitely wasn't in any manual I'd ever read. I pressed myself against the wall, watching physics take a vacation. Hank reached the left corridor and grabbed the first raider by his chest plate. Then he just lifted. The raider's boots left the ground. His rifle clattered away. And Hank threw him straight into the emergency shield, where he hit with a satisfying thud and slid down like a cartoon character. "That's one," Hank shouted, grinning like a maniac. Marcus took a different approach. He was smaller than Hank, leaner, but he moved like water. 3 raiders converged on him, and he simply wasn't where they expected. A strike to one's knee joint, an elbow to another's throat seal, a leg sweep that sent the third sprawling. Efficient, brutal, terrifying. But Captain Reeves? She was putting on a clinic. The leader she'd thrown was back on his feet, roaring with rage. He charged her with both arms extended, trying to use his bulk to crush her. She sidestepped at the last possible moment, grabbed one of his arms, and used his own momentum to redirect him straight into a support pillar. The metal buckled. He didn't get up this time. "2!" she called out. "That's cheating! He hit himself!" Hank protested while strangling a raider with the raider's own equipment harness. "Still counts!" A plasma bolt scorched past my head, and I remembered I was supposed to be doing something other than spectating. Right. Civilian protection. I could do that. Probably. I checked my comm. "Quent, status report?" Static. Then his voice, strained. "We've got breaches on 3 levels. They're pushing hard toward the core. Where are you?" "Observation deck. The humans are holding them here, but—" "The humans? Marlowe, get out of there! Those are trained raiders." "Yeah, about that." Another raider went flying past me, courtesy of Captain Reeves executing some kind of throw that involved her hip. his center of gravity, and what I was pretty sure was divine intervention. He crashed through a viewing window. The emergency shields held, but he was definitely unconscious. "The humans are winning," I finished. "That's impossible." "I'm watching it happen." Captain Reeves grabbed my arm, yanking me down as a plasma bolt cut through the space my head had occupied. "Hey, security guy, you got a name?" "Marlowe." "Great. Marlowe, I need you to get to the platform's central computer and lock down sections D through G. Can you do that?" "Yes, but why?" "Because we're about to give these idiots a really bad day, and I need them contained." She didn't wait for confirmation, just pushed me toward the corridor and went back to demonstrating why humans were classified as a persistence predator species. I ran because staying seemed like a good way to die, and dying wasn't on my shift schedule. The corridors were chaos. Station personnel running, civilians screaming, alarm klaxons making coherent thought nearly impossible. I pushed through it all, heading for the central operations room. Tommy's voice crackled on the general comm frequency. "Captain, Lucia's got the defense turrets back online. She's routing them to manual control. Tell her I love her, and I want her to target the Raiders' ship engines. Their shields are still up." "Not for long. Marcus, you in position?" Marcus's reply was calm despite the sound of combat in the background. "Affirmative. Charges set on their boarding craft." "Hank?" "Little busy." The sound of something heavy hitting something harder. "Make that really busy." I reached the operations room. Drix was there, all 6 of his hands working different consoles simultaneously. "Marlowe, thank the stars. I need help coordinating the evacuation routes." Change of plans. I slid into the security station. "We're locking down sections D through G." "What? That'll trap half our security teams." "Trust me." I didn't know if I trusted Captain Reeves, but I trusted what I'd seen. Humans doing impossible things. Humans winning against odds that should have crushed them. Humans being, well, human. My fingers flew across the console. Section D locked. Section E locked. Section F locked. Section G locked. "Done," I reported through the comm. "Perfect. Marcus, light them up." The platform shuddered. Not from weapons fire this time, from explosives. The Raiders' boarding craft, still attached to our hull, erupted in a series of controlled detonations. The blast tore through their ship and severed the connection point, sending debris spinning into space. More importantly, it cut off their reinforcements. "Their shields just flickered," Lucia's excited voice came through. "I've got a targeting solution." "Take it." The platform's defense turrets, ancient things that barely worked on a good day, opened fire with renewed purpose. Without the boarding craft in the way, they had clean shots at the Raiders' cruisers. 1, 2, 3 direct hits. The lead cruiser's shields collapsed. "Again!" Captain Reeves commanded. The turrets fired. The cruiser's engine section exploded in a brilliant flash. The ship began drifting, powerless, bleeding atmosphere. The second cruiser turned to run. "Oh, no, you don't," Captain Reeves muttered, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Lucia, tracking shot. Lead them by 0.3 degrees. That's a really hard shot, Captain. You've made harder." A pause, then firing. The plasma bolt traveled across the void, silent in vacuum, beautiful in its deadly arc. It caught the fleeing cruiser right in its main thruster assembly. The ship jerked, veered wildly, and began spinning out of control. In the observation deck, the remaining Raiders finally realized they were losing. Their ships were disabled. Their reinforcements weren't coming, and 3 humans were systematically dismantling their entire boarding party. The ones who could still move tried to retreat. Captain Reeves let them get to the breach point. Then she nodded to Marcus. He tapped something on his wrist device. The breach point, which the Raiders had blown open so confidently, suddenly wasn't a breach anymore. Emergency hull foam The kind used for catastrophic repairs erupted from hidden dispensers. It expanded rapidly, filling the opening, hardening instantly, and trapping 4 raiders halfway through. They hung there, stuck, while the foam solidified around them. "And that," Captain Reeves said, breathing hard but still standing, "is why you don't follow people to random stations. You never know what you're going to find." Hank was sitting on an unconscious raider, catching his breath. "I count 18 down. That all of them?" Marcus checked his tactical display. 22 total. 4 trapped in the foam. All accounted for. "Quent," I called through the comm. "The observation deck is secure. What's your status?" We're holding. Barely. They hit us hard on level 3, but we've contained them. How in the 12 moons did you secure the deck already?" "The humans." A long pause. "Say that again?" "The humans secured the deck. All raiders down or captured." Another pause, even longer. "I'm putting in for a transfer. This station is too weird." I couldn't argue with that. The next hour was a blur of activity. Station security rounded up the raiders. Medical teams treated the wounded. Engineering crews assessed the damage. And Captain Reeves and her crew sat in the observation deck, looking tired but satisfied. I approached her carefully. She was drinking something from a flask that smelled strong enough to strip paint. "That was—" I started, then realized I had no idea how to finish that sentence. "Necessary," she supplied. "Also fun. Mostly necessary, though. You threw a fully armored Rakthian raider. Technically, I used his momentum against him. Basic physics. Well, basic plus adrenaline. And spite. Lots of spite." "That's not possible." She took another drink. "You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means." "No, seriously. Your species. You're not that strong. The mass differential alone." "Marlowe." She looked at me with those sharp eyes. "Can I tell you a secret about humans?" "Sure." "We're not the strongest species. We're not the fastest. We're not the smartest, though don't tell the Centaurians I said that. But we have one advantage that nobody else really gets." "What's that?" "We're too stupid to know when we should give up. We see something impossible, and instead of accepting it, we get angry. We take it personally. And then we figure out a way to do it anyway out of pure spite." Hank laughed from where he was getting his arm bandaged. "She's not wrong. I once saw her argue with a black hole until it blinked first." "That's not how black holes work," I protested. "Tell that to the black hole." Captain Reeves stood, wincing slightly. "Look, I appreciate the help with the lockdown. Couldn't have done it without you." "Well, we could have, but it would have been messier." "You're welcome." "Now, about our docking fees. Given that we just saved this station from being looted, murdered, and generally having a bad time, I'm thinking we've earned a discount." I stared at her. "You want to negotiate docking fees? Now? Best time to negotiate is when you have leverage. And right now, I have a lot of leverage." She wasn't wrong about that either. Drix appeared, looking haggard. "Captain Reeves, the station commander wants to speak with you. Something about hiring you as permanent security." "Not interested. We're cargo haulers, remember? Extremely well-armed cargo haulers who just repelled a major raider attack." "Details." Tommy and Lucia returned, both grinning. "Captain, you're not going to believe this. The raiders had a bounty on their heads. All of them. We're looking at about 200,000 credits if we turn them in." Captain Reeves's expression changed. 200,000? Split 5 ways. That's 40,000 each. That's enough to fix the ship, and upgrade the weapon systems, and maybe even get actual coffee. "The good stuff," Hank added reverently. She turned to me. "Marlowe, I take it back. We love this station. We want to dock here all the time. Please tell me those fees can be waived." I couldn't help it. I laughed. Real, genuine laughter that I hadn't felt since taking this job. I'll see what I can do. You're a good guy, Marlowe. For a non-human. Thanks, I think. The station commander did eventually arrive, accompanied by half a dozen security officers who looked like they'd been through a war, which, technically, they had. Commander Eleth was a Vorgathian, even larger than Kelp, with 4 eyes that could look in multiple directions simultaneously. She surveyed the observation deck, the unconscious raiders, the damaged walls, the emergency foam still hardening in the breach. Then she looked at Captain Reeves. Explain. They attacked. We defended. Physics happened. The end. Physics. Very aggressive physics. Commander Eleth's eyes swiveled to focus on me. All 4 of them. Security Officer Marlowe, is this accurate? More or less, Commander. The humans engaged the raiders using unconventional tactics, but effective ones. Unconventional. This was going to require a very long report, possibly several reports, maybe an entire new category of reports that didn't exist yet. Commander, Captain Reeves interjected, with respect, we saved a lot of lives today. Your people fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. We helped even the odds. By throwing raiders off platforms. Among other things, yes. Commander Eleth was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. It was a deep, booming sound. You humans! Always surprising us. Always doing things that shouldn't work. Always surviving when you should die. It's kind of our thing, Hank offered. Very well. The bounties are yours. The docking fees are waived. And, Captain Reeves, if you ever want a permanent position, the offer stands. Appreciated, but we prefer to keep moving. Staying in one place makes us itchy. Understood. Marlowe, see to it that these humans are provided whatever supplies they need for repairs. Consider it payment for services rendered. Yes, Commander. As Eleth left with her security detail, I turned back to Captain Reeves. So, what now? She stretched, joints popping. Now? Now we fix our ship, collect our bounty, and get the hell away from this sector before something else tries to kill us. Sounds reasonable. Reasonable, right. That's us. Totally reasonable people who do reasonable things. Marcus spoke up, his deep voice thoughtful. Captain, we should leave soon. The Rakthian cartel won't take this loss lightly. They'll send more ships. Let them. We'll be long gone. Besides, I have a feeling this station can handle itself now. She glanced at me. Right, Marlowe? I certainly hope so. Hope's good. Hope and heavy weapons. That's a solid combination. Over the next 2 days, I watched as Captain Reeves and her crew worked on their ship. They were methodical, professional, and surprisingly good at repairs, considering how battered their vessel had been. Station engineers helped, curious about human technology and methods. I visited the docking bay on their last day. The ship, while still showing signs of damage, looked space-worthy again. New hull plates covered the worst breaches. The engines hummed with power. It still wasn't pretty, but it would fly. Captain Reeves was supervising the final checks when I approached. Heading out? Yeah. Got a cargo contract on the other side of the sector. Medical supplies to a colony world. Boring, routine, probably won't involve any combat whatsoever. You don't believe that, she grinned. Not even a little bit. But hey, a girl can dream. Thank you for what you did. We got paid. That's thanks enough. Still, you could have run. Could have sealed your ship and left us to our fate. She looked at me seriously. No, we couldn't have. That's not who we are. That's not what humans do. We're a lot of things, Marlowe. Stubborn, reckless, often stupid. But we don't abandon people. Not when we can help. Not even when it's dangerous. Why? Because somebody has to. Because if we don't, who will? And because, at the end of the day, we all deserve someone willing to stand up and fight for us, even if it's just a bunch of cargo haulers with more attitude than sense. Tommy called from inside the ship. "Captain, we're ready for departure." "That's my cue." She extended her hand. I took it, and she shook firmly. "Take care of yourself, Marlowe. And if you ever get tired of station duty, look us up. We could always use someone who knows when to run and when to stay." "I'll keep that in mind." I watched from the observation deck as their freighter undocked, maneuvered clear of the platform, and engaged its faster-than-light drive. One moment, they were there. The next, they were gone, leaving only the faint shimmer of displaced space. Quent joined me at the window. "Think we'll see them again?" "Probably. Trouble seems to follow them. Or they follow it." "That too." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Marlowe, what you saw, when she threw that raider, that really happened?" "Yeah." "How?" I thought about Captain Reeves's explanation, about humans being too stubborn to accept limitations, about spite being a viable motivational force, about physics mixed with adrenaline and desperation. "I have absolutely no idea." "Great. I hate it when the universe doesn't make sense." "Get used to it. We live in a galaxy with humans now. Nothing's going to make sense ever again." Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, Captain Maya Reeves and her crew were heading toward their next adventure, their next impossible situation, their next opportunity to demonstrate that humans didn't play by the same rules as everyone else. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, I kind of envied them for it. Because the thing about humans, the thing I finally understood after watching one throw a fully armored raider like he was made of feathers, was this: they didn't win because they were stronger, or faster, or smarter. They won because they absolutely refused to lose. And in a galaxy full of species who understood their limits and accepted their place in the natural order, humans were the ones who looked at those limits and said, "Watch me." I went back to my security post, filed my reports, answered questions from investigators who didn't believe half of what I told them. And every time someone asked me to explain how 3 humans held off 40 raiders, I just smiled and said, "Physics. Very aggressive physics." They never knew what to do with that answer. Neither did I, honestly. But I knew one thing for certain. The next time a human freighter requested emergency docking clearance, I was going to approve it immediately and make sure we had plenty of medical supplies ready. Not for the humans, for whoever was stupid enough to pick a fight with them.